In 1939, the world was on the edge of a great conflict. World War II was beginning. Great Britain needed a strong navy to protect its shores and its ships. Submarines were a key part of this navy. They could travel silently under the water. They were the hidden hunters of the sea. One of these submarines was HMS Seal. It was a modern vessel, one of the new Porpoise-class submarines. These were special boats. They were not just for attacking enemy ships. They were designed to lay mines. These mines were like hidden bombs in the sea, waiting for enemy vessels to pass. The crew of HMS Seal were proud sailors. They were a mix of experienced men, young recruits. Each man had a vital job. Some worked the engines, others handled the torpedoes and mines, some navigated the dark waters. Leading them was Lieutenant Commander Rupert Lonsdale. He was a respected officer, known for his calm and steady leadership. The crew trusted him completely. As the war started, HMS Seal began its service, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In late April of 1940, HMS Seal received new orders. It was a mission unlike any they had undertaken before. They were to sail into the Kattegat Strait. This was an extremely dangerous stretch of water. It connects the North Sea to the Baltic Sea. The strait was heavily controlled by the German military. German ships patrolled the surface. German planes watched from the sky. It was a gateway to the German heartland, and they guarded it fiercely. The mission for HMS Seal was to go deep into this enemy territory and lay a field of 50 mines. It was a bold and risky plan. Lieutenant Commander Lonsdale gathered his crew. He explained the mission to them. They all understood the immense danger. They would have to navigate through narrow channels, avoiding patrols and existing minefields. Success meant disrupting German shipping lanes. Failure could mean capture or death. As HMS Seal set off from the coast of Britain, the reality of the mission began to sink in, and their greatest test was about to begin. As HMS Seal crept deeper into the Kattegat Strait, the danger increased with every mile. On the evening of May 4, 1940, they were getting close to their target location. Suddenly, the submarine was spotted by German anti-submarine planes. The planes dropped bombs, and the explosions rocked the submarine violently. Commander Lonsdale ordered an immediate dive to escape the attack. He took the Seal deep, trying to find safety in the dark water. But in the chaos of the dive and the need to avoid the planes, the submarine veered off its planned course. They were now in an unknown and even more dangerous area. Unbeknownst to the crew, they had drifted into a defensive German minefield. While trying to steer the submarine back on course, disaster struck. The stern or back end of the submarine hit one of the German mines. A massive explosion tore through the water. It threw men from their feet and plunged parts of the submarine into total darkness. The explosion badly damaged the stern, including the rudder and the diving planes that controlled the submarine's depth. The submarine was now out of control. It began to sink rapidly, stern first. Alarms blared through the cramped compartments as water started to pour into the damaged rear section. HMS Seal crashed onto the seabed, its stern buried deep in the mud. They were trapped in a steel tomb at the bottom of the sea, with no easy way to escape and the enemy waiting for them above. At the bottom of the Kattegat, the crew of HMS Seal faced a terrifying reality. The air inside the submarine was becoming poisonous. The explosion had damaged the systems that purified the air, and carbon dioxide levels were rising quickly. The men were breathing heavily, their heads aching. They knew that if they did not get to the surface soon, they would all suffocate. Commander Lonsdale knew he had to act fast. He ordered the crew to try everything they could to free the submarine from the muddy seabed. They tried to use the main engines, but the engines only sputtered and failed. They tried shifting weight, moving heavy equipment, and even the crew themselves from one end of the submarine to the other. But the submarine remained stuck fast. The air was getting so bad that men were starting to lose consciousness. Just when all hope seemed lost, they tried one last, desperate idea. They would use the submarine's compressed air tanks. These tanks were normally used to blow water out of the ballast tanks to make the submarine surface. It was a huge risk. A sudden, uncontrolled ascent could destroy the submarine, but it was their only chance. With the remaining crew gathered in the forward compartments, they released all the compressed air at once. There was a great shudder and a groaning of metal. Slowly, miraculously, the bow of the submarine began to lift. With a final violent lurch, HMS Seal broke free from the seabed. It soared towards the surface, completely out of control. It breached the water like a whale, its bow pointing steeply towards the sky. They threw open the hatches and fresh, clean air flooded into the submarine. They had survived the impossible, but their ordeal was far from over. Floating on the surface, HMS Seal was in a terrible state. The submarine was badly damaged. The explosion had destroyed its ability to dive. The rudder was gone. They could not steer properly. Commander Lonsdale knew their only hope was to reach neutral territory. The coast of Sweden was just 10 miles away. Sweden was neutral. If they made it there, they would be safe. The crew worked feverishly to get the engines running. Engineers performed miracles in the engine room. They got the main engines working, but only in reverse. The sub had to travel backwards. With no rudder, steering was almost impossible. They used the engines unevenly to steer, one faster than the other. It was slow and clumsy. The battered sub limped like a wounded animal. Their luck ran out. A Heinkel float plane appeared. It swooped down and opened fire. Bullets raked the deck. Commander Lonsdale was hit in the leg. The situation was hopeless. It could not dive. It could not fight back effectively. It could not outrun the enemy. Lonsdale faced an impossible choice. Fight to the death, certain destruction, or surrender, save his crew, lose the ship and honor. He chose to save his men. He ordered his crew to prepare a white flag. They found a white tablecloth from the officers' mess. The white flag was raised on the submarine's mast. A British submarine had never surrendered at sea before. They began the grim task of destroying their secret equipment and code books. They smashed radios, navigation tools, and confidential documents. A German naval vessel was now approaching, responding to the aircraft's call. The German vessel came alongside the crippled submarine. German sailors, armed with rifles, boarded HMS Seal. The British crew were ordered onto the deck with their hands up. They were now prisoners of war. They looked at their submarine, their home, for the last time as it was taken over by the enemy. For the first and only time in the entire war, a British submarine had been forced to raise the white flag. The surrender was just the beginning of a new and difficult chapter for the men of HMS Seal. The 60 men from HMS Seal were sent to prisoner-of-war camps across Germany known as Stalags. Life in these camps was hard. The food was scarce, the conditions were poor. The sailors were used to naval discipline and purpose. Now they had to adapt to a life of waiting, surrounded by barbed wire, armed guards patrolling. Their freedom was gone. Their spirit was not broken. They maintained naval discipline as best they could. Despite the hardships, the men found ways to resist. Escape was always on their minds. Many crew members were involved in escape attempts. They dug tunnels. They forged documents. They made disguises. One famous escapee was Third Officer Lieutenant Terry Lloyd. He made several daring attempts to break out. These acts were not just about regaining freedom. They were a way to continue the fight and show they had not been defeated in spirit. Commander Lonsdale was sent to a special officers' camp, Oflag 4C, better known as Colditz Castle. Even there, Lonsdale stayed a leader. He was the senior British officer for a time. He helped organize the prisoners. He was involved in planning escape activities. He endured interrogation by the Germans. He gave them no useful information. For 5 long years, the men of HMS Seal waited for the war to end. They endured hunger. They endured cold. They supported each other, shared news from home, kept hope alive. They told stories of the submarine. Their shared experience bonded them forever. When the war ended in 1945, they were liberated by Allied forces. Their long ordeal was over. When Commander Rupert Lonsdale returned to Britain after the war, he was not greeted as a hero. He was met with a court-martial. This is a military trial. According to Royal Navy tradition, any commander who loses his ship must face a trial to determine if he was at fault. The charge against Lonsdale was severe. He was accused of failing to ensure his submarine did not fall into enemy hands. The tradition was that a captain should go down with his ship or at the very least, scuttle it, sink it, deliberately. Lonsdale had done neither. The prosecution argued that Lonsdale should have fought to the last man or found a way to sink HMS Seal. They pointed to the strict rules of the Navy. Many in the Naval High Command felt that an example needed to be made. They worried that Lonsdale's actions might set a dangerous precedent. Lonsdale's defense was simple and powerful. He described the impossible situation he and his crew had faced. He explained how the submarine was completely crippled and unable to dive. He recounted how they were surrounded by the enemy with no hope of escape or effective resistance. His main argument was that his first duty was to his men. He had chosen to save their lives. Many of his former crew members testified in his defense supporting his decision. After hearing all the evidence, the court made its decision. They found Commander Lonsdale not guilty. They ruled that he had done everything possible in an impossible situation. The decision to surrender was justified to save the lives of his crew. It was a huge relief for Lonsdale and his men. His name was cleared. His honor was fully restored. The story of HMS Seal and its crew is one of the most remarkable tales of survival from World War II. It stands out because it is a story not of a great victory, but of incredible endurance against impossible odds. The surrender of HMS Seal remains a unique event in the history of the Royal Navy. It was the only time during the entire war that a British submarine was captured at sea by the enemy. The trial highlights the conflict between rigid military tradition and the human responsibility of a commander for his crew. The legacy of HMS Seal is not one of shame or defeat. It is a story of human courage in the face of overwhelming adversity. When survival meant surrender, their commander made the toughest choice of all. He chose his men over his ship. It shows that true honor is not always found in victory, but in the courage to face impossible choices, and the will to live to fight another day. Their story honors the memory of sailors who were pushed to the absolute limit and survived.